Jason Ramirez, born right here in Billings, Montana. Married to Alicia Ramirez, my wife. I got 4 kids. J2, Alizea, Kaylee, and Ezekiel. Grew up right here in Billings. Kind of enjoy golfing, fishing. I'm not a very good fisher, but I like to fish. Kind of, I catch the little ones. I probably could have won that on that little fish picture. I think I could have won because mine are smaller than that.
Right.
But that's about it.
Tell me about your family, extended family.
Okay, we got some extended family. We got Michael and Jolene Sarsfield. That's kind of how we started coming to Emmanuel. They've adopted out my 2 younger kids. So, so we have a bigger family. It's pretty big. It turns into quite a bit of kids. And
awesome. So, let's start off kind of in a chronological order and say what was you growing up like?
All right. So first off, I was supposed to come up here, and someone told me to come up here and just kind of picture the crowd, picture everyone in their underwear, right? So if I'm looking at you, look good, buddy. So kind of ease it up a little bit, right? Kind of calm my nerves. All right, my upbringing. So I was born right here in Billings, Montana. My mom, my dad are Betty and Julio Ramirez. My dad came from Mexico, married my mom. They were young, about 15 years old when they got married. Either one of them could read or write. My dad was an alcoholic, abusive, and so I just dealt with that my whole upbringing. I got 7 siblings, which I'm the second to youngest. All of us, lived hard lives. Drugs, alcohol, crime. That was just kind of like our everyday life. My mom dealt with my mom dealt with my dad a lot. So they kind of left the kids just to kind of do whatever we wanted. We were running the streets at young, 2nd, 3rd grade. I was out till 10, 11 o'clock. Josh asked me, he said, he had one of the questions on here is, when did it all start going wrong? And I said, well, it kind of went south right away. I think I came out of my mom feet first smoking a cigarette. I think that's it. I mean, it was, when I was young, we started doing a lot of bad stuff. But I do remember when I was in 2nd, 3rd grade school somewhere, we had some guys that would pick us up on Thursday nights. It was called the Clapham House. They'd pick us up, or on Thursday mornings actually, before school. We'd go to the Clapham House and they'd serve us breakfast and do a Bible study with us. And on the weekends, they'd take you roller skating or camping, sometimes in the summer. And they were a huge part of my life at that point when I was young. I didn't realize it till later on, but they were planting seeds that would eventually grow and become trees, really. But so those were positive role models I had in my life as a youngster. That was Dave Morales and Dave Hangstrom. Some of you guys might know them. Super good guys. But after that, 3rd grade is the first time I used methamphetamines. I was in 3rd grade, wow. Which is 8 or 9 years old or something. Wow. Sometimes I look around and I look at 3rd graders and I'm like, man, who would ever give that kid drugs? But that was me and that was the life. And it wasn't just me, it was all my siblings. It was all like that. Everyone I was with, it was just the life we were brought up in. And so right around then was 5th grade. I got my first felony. We were at a place called Tokens. It was a arcade for kids, it was an arcade place, and one of my older friends had picked me up and set me over the counter, and I opened the cash register and took all the money, ran off, and ended up getting charged with a felony. And I haven't really said this before, but Andrew, I did tell on you. It was Andrew, but no, that was my first kind of getting in big trouble with the law. When I was about 12 years old, I remember my brother, his name's Julian, we called him Peanuts. He died in a car wreck, DUI car wreck, drinking and driving. I remember being in my basement at night, and I was sleeping on the couch. My brothers came home, and I remember they came there, and I could just hear him saying, I think he's dead, I think he's dead. And I woke up to that. I remember going to the hospital, and that was like really the first time anyone's ever died in my life is my brother Peanuts. And so that always just kind of stuck with me. Also, I remember when I was in 6th grade, I had a teacher who, she came to me because I used to always miss school. I was smoking weed like every day. She caught me with marijuana, but she came and she said, Jason, you're a leader in this. All the kids want to be like you. She said, when you miss school and you're doing this stuff, she said, all the kids want to do that. So she said, she made me a deal, and she said, if you come to school every single day for the whole week and get all your homework done, I'll give you $20 and I'll take you and another friend skiing every Saturday. So she was like the only person that really ever gave me any hope. So I went to school, I got straight A's for that year, 6th grade, and she was a special lady that really helped me. Moving into junior high, same stuff. Just kept using. Obviously, she wasn't there in junior high no more, so I just kept using, kept getting high. Ended up going to senior, ended up getting another felony. Dropped out in 10th grade, maybe even before that. But it was just more of the same stuff. Just kept using drugs and kept just being a criminal, really.
And so you said you used meth the first time in the 3rd grade. How often and how accessible was it from that time through high school?
Well, when I was in 3rd grade, that was like a one-time deal. We were all out hooky bobbing. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but we'd go in the wintertime, we'd go around and we'd find cars and we'd jump behind on the bumpers and get pulled all over. We went to this house and they had meth there, and the guy gave me and my cousin a little line. And so it was like a one-time thing, but by the time I was in 5th and 6th, and definitely by the time I got to 7th grade, I remember we were using drugs on the way to school, like almost daily.
Dang. So how did that then kind of translate into adult life for you?
Well, dropped out of high school, and just kept with the same stuff. And it always kind of just got a little worse and a little worse and a little worse. You know, it started off just using this and that, but as I got out of high school, I quit high school, didn't have a job, started getting all kinds of misdemeanor charges, started getting assaults, MIPs, little thefts, little stuff like that, and so I do 6 months in jail, do 5 days in jail, do a weekend in jail, and that kept just growing and growing and getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. At the age of 18, I met my wife, Alicia, when I was 18 years old. And she was like the perfect match for me because she came from the same kind of family. Her dad was a drug dealer. She was using drugs. So it was just like perfect for me. So I found my one, basically, I guess. But, not in a good way, but we've been together for 25 years now. So, but, yeah. She's been with me through a lot. I don't deserve it, so thank you for that. But yeah, so I met her. Soon after that, we had our son, J2. And then we ended up having Zaya. And then right when I was 20 years old, I'd say, I ended up getting my first felony as an adult. It was a robbery charge from Walmart. And the funny thing is, I'm still serving on that case today, and that was in 03 or 02. So 25 years later, I'm still on the same thing. But I ended up getting my first felony as an adult. I got the first, not jail sentence, but it's a DOC commitment. So I had to go to I got sent to Missoula, and then I went to pre-release for my first time. Got to the pre-release. And as being locked up, I started kind of reading the Bible, kind of dabbling in Christianity, I guess. I wanted to read the Bible. I wanted to throw up these prayers, God, please get me out of this, and I'll do anything, So I was doing that, but I got to pre-release, and I still wanted to seek God a little bit. I ended up getting there, and I called a church here in town, and I just told them kind of where I was at, and I was asking, hey, can somebody bring me to church on Sunday? And the guy came over, he got us. He was a really cool guy. He was a nice. Him and his wife were really nice. They picked me up, they brought me to church, and I got to the church, and they said, so where are you at? I said, well, I'm at a halfway house. I just kind of got out of prison. And they're like, oh, really? And they didn't really know nothing about it. And so his wife's like, and you don't get home-cooked meals? And I was like, no, I don't get home-cooked meals. And so the next week when she came, the whole church had a potluck, and they had like all this food downstairs for us. They're like, well, you deserve a home-cooked meal. And so they started cooking. And then they started doing that every week. And then I started inviting other guys from the pre-release, and we all started going. Next thing you know, this guy went and bought a bus. He bought a bus for the pre-release, and he'd come pick people up, and they're eating, and they're bringing all kinds of food. And that was like my first like real introduction to Christianity, seeking God. I got baptized in that church. They were good people. I got baptized. I accepted Christ at that time, but I don't know if I was fully committed to it, but I did accept Christ at that time. That was in 2006. But as soon as I got out of the pre-release center, they kind of loosened the chains on me a little bit, because the pre-release, if you guys don't know, is like you're in basically, you got a lot of supervision. You got to tell them where you're going, tell them where you're going to be. They UA you all the time, stuff like that. So I was under a heavier supervision, so I did really good in that setting. But as soon as I got out, man, I remember it was like a week. Started getting high again, started using. I remember that guy, his name was John, the pastor. He's knocking on my door to come to bring me to church, and I'm peeking out the window and trying to hide from him. So it was just ugly. But then I started using right away, and then went a couple weeks after that. P&P came to my house, and they caught me with a bunch more drugs, and I went to prison again. I went to jail. I remember my son was like 2 years old at this time, and I remember calling him from jail, and I said, hey, what are you doing, buddy? And he's outside, and I'm playing t-ball outside, he said. And I said, oh, he's like, well, you don't want to play t-ball with me? And it broke my heart at that time. And then I remember later on calling him, and he says, where are you at? I said, I'm in prison. And he says, well, you must like it there. And I said, why? He said, because you always go there. And so yeah, but all those stories, hearing them, and I wanted to do better, I wanted to do good, but I just never did. And it just, actions speak louder than words. Every time I would get out, I'd get high, I'd do the same thing. So that was in like 2009 when that one happened. And then I ended up going to prison for my first time. That was actual prison, not the pre-release setting. I ended up going to prison. And in prison, I dabble in Christianity. I wanted to live a worldly life, but I still wanted the blessings of God. I wanted to show up on church on Sunday and still live my life how I wanted the rest of the week. And just, that never works out. But so I started dabbling in Christianity again. I ended up getting out, got out of pre-release again. And I remember I was doing Bible study with the guy, as a good friend of mine. His name was Sonny. We started doing Bible study together, and I remember him telling me, when we start this Bible study, Satan's really going to attack you. And I never really thought nothing of it, but he said that, and so a couple of weeks we did this Bible study, and then, I've always dabbled in, been a user and kind of that life. I've never really had a lot of drugs, never really was selling drugs or anything like that. I was just kind of low level, I guess, criminal. But as soon as I started doing this Bible study with this guy, I remember this dude I knew came, and he has just all this meth. And he's like, hey man, I got this. You want all this? If you take it, I'll give it to you. And he kind of gave me all this meth. He's like, yeah, just pay me when you sell it, And it never dawned on me till later on in life when I looked at it. And I'm like, man, that was Satan just knew right where to attack me. As soon as I started doing that Bible study, and as soon as I started getting close to Christ, he attacked me, and he just and he knew right where to get me. It's always the same, right? Yeah. He always attacks us in the same areas. So he gave me all these drugs, and you give an addict a whole bunch of drugs. I mean, you guys can probably guess what happened, right? I was running around Billings like a chicken with my head cut off. I mean, I was going on high-speed chases. I was catching felony after felony. I'd get arrested, and I'd bond out of jail. Because I had drug money to get out too, so I'd get arrested, I'd bond out, or I'd go on high-speed chases. I was just really, really digging it, a deep, deep hole. It just kept getting worse and worse. My sin, my small little sin that was little was getting bigger and bigger, and out of control. I mean, at this point, it's so big, and I'm in so much trouble, I don't know what to do, so I just kept doing the same things I was doing. About this time, after all these high-speed chases and getting in trouble, I remember I took the cops on a high-speed chase, and the very next night they came to where I took them on a high-speed chase at, and I was in this house, and my friend, a couple of my friends were in the car out in front of the house, and the cops pulled up. And I remember because we had cameras on this house, so I was watching them out front. And the cops pulled up, and I remember the police officer saying, they pull up, 2 cops pull up, and they're like, well, the reason we're stopping you is because we're looking for somebody who has warrants for their arrest. Because they were looking for me. Well, my friend jumps out of the car. Police try to stop him. One of them tases him, and the other officer shoots him. And that was my friend Jason. He got killed that night, and I was sitting in the house. And so they shot him. They killed my friend. I'm watching this on camera. I had 6 kids in this house with me at this time. There was 6 little kids in the house, and I was tripping out. The cops were all over. I'm outside. Or they're all outside. I'm in this house. I'm looking at these cameras. I remember calling Alicia, my wife, and I said, hey, I love you. I'm sorry for everything. And I hung up the phone, took the batteries out, threw them. And I remember after a while, I'm sitting in front of this house, and I'm watching these cameras, and a whole line of SWAT team members are out front. And they're on this bullhorn, and they're like, Jason Ramirez, this is the hostage negotiation team. Let these kids go. Could have been you. But no, there's a whole SWAT team outside, and I'm in this house, and I'm like, oh man, this is it. I'm going to be in trouble. They're going to get me. I'm just, at this time, I'm just hoping I don't get shot. So, like I said, there's 6 kids in this house with me, and they got these 2 big St. Bernard dogs. And I'm not even trying to hide. I'm like, I remember I tried to say one of them foxhole prayers again. I said, God, please get me out of this or whatever. And I went in this kids' room because I thought that'd be the safest place. I went in the kids' room and I laid in the bed, and the next thing you know, I hear the door just pounding. Boom, boom, boom. Billings Police Department, SWAT team, hostage negotiation. And they all came in, and they all came in this house, but there was 2 big St. Bernards, so they had the homeowner with them. And I heard the guy say, hey, officers, my kids are in this room. Please don't shoot my kids. And I remember him opening the door, and I remember I was laying on this bed, and all I seen was lasers just all over in this room. And he says, hey, kids, the police officers need to look in your room. And these kids got up, and they all just kind of threw their blankets on me. And I don't know how it happened. I wasn't trying to hide. All these cops come in there, and they're like, clear, clear. And then one of them grabs, he has his hand on my foot on this bed, and he picks the bed up. They're looking under it, and he says, this room's clear. And they put them dogs in there, and they never found me. And so I got away. That was pretty...
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was pretty nerve-wracking.
So the joke, I might have been there. I used to be in law enforcement, so that was the joke there.
Yeah. He used to be in the SWAT team, so... But, yeah, another joke. Yeah, so that happened that day. They all came in. I got away, but it didn't stop nothing. My friend got killed, but I'm still living the same life. I'm still running the streets. I'm still using drugs. It just gets deeper and deeper and bigger and bigger, and I keep selling more drugs and getting more drugs. And after that incident, about 3 weeks later, I went to jail. They set my bond at like $100,000. I bond out. I go on the run again. I end up going to Bozeman. I go into Bozeman. I got a possession with intent there and another charge there. I ended up bonding out of there. And this is all like in about a year's time. And then about a year later, I'm just on like a suicide mission. I'm running around. I'm robbing drug dealers. Obviously, I couldn't get no drugs no more from drug dealers, so I started robbing them. I'm robbing all these drug dealers, basically on a suicide mission, And and then back then, I robbed a drug dealer got robbed. The next day, the Billings Police Department comes looking to arrest me because of the incident that happened the night before. And while they're trying to arrest me, they end up shooting and killing my brother in the backseat of a vehicle. And, he died for my actions and a lot of things I did. Took me a long time to deal with that. There's a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of pain through it all. But, they end up killing my brother for something he had no involvement with. It's about a week after that. I'm blasted all over the newspaper. They're looking for me. And then I remember the day they finally arrested me. The last time they arrested me, I was in this house. We came walking up. The marshals are all over me. They're searching for me everywhere. I go to this house, and I walk in, and I remember it wasn't even 2 minutes. I was sitting down on that couch. The door comes kicking open. Boom! I take off running. I jump out of a window. Glass is flying. This is like right over on Grand Avenue. I jump out. I'm running as fast as I can. And I got like these 3 marshals. They're like jogging around me. Like they all got assault rifles are all staring right at me. I remember people were parked in their cars and they're getting out of their cars and looking. And I got all three of these marshals surrounding me, and I'm holding my pants up so I didn't have a belt on. And the cop's looking at me, and he's like, Jason, just don't make us, your mom already lost one son. Don't make us shoot you. Don't make us shoot you. I remember standing there and I'm looking at him, and then another cop just came and kicked me, and I fell to the ground. And that was the last time. That was the last time I got arrested. I went to jail. They set my bond at $850,000. I had 15 felonies, and it was pretty much the end of my run.
Okay. So then, what changed? Because you're here today. So
now we get to the good stuff. So they set my bond, like I said, for $850,000. Now I'm stuck. Before I always had kind of like maybe I can get out, maybe I can come up with that much money. This time I'm stuck. My best friend got shot. My brother just got killed. My family's torn apart. And this is all off my actions. This is what the choices that I made caused all this. So I'm sitting in jail, and when you get to jail and you're a drug addict, the first month you're sleeping. I was just sleeping it off. Didn't want to deal with none of it. Coming down off drugs is what they call it. But after about a month, you can't sleep no more. It's time to get up and face the music, right? So I had to get up, waking up, and I remember, like I said, I've dabbled in Christianity, but I've never really been all in on it. So I bought a radio, kind of settled in, because I ain't going nowhere for a while, I know that. So I'm sitting there, and I bought a radio, and I put it on K-Love, and I'm listening to music. And there's this one day I'm sitting in my cell. It's about 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock. And there's like a cell window. In the jail cell, you got like a little slit window, and the sun's coming through, and I'm sitting on my bunk, and my cellie's over there on the little plastic bunk, and he's sleeping. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just thinking about everything, like everything I've been involved in. And usually I'm throwing up, God, get me out of this, and I'll do anything, prayers. But this time it was a little late for all that, So I remember I was sitting there, and I just closed my eyes, and I gave God everything. I said, God, I'm so sorry. What do I got to do? Whatever this looks like, and whatever I do, if I got to do the rest of my life in prison, God, I just want to serve you there. And I just want you. I just poured my heart out to God, basically, but like a prayer that I've never prayed. I wasn't asking for an easy way out. I was just like down to the bottom of the barrel, I guess you could call it. I was as low as I could get. And I remember at that time, I threw my headphones on, and I clicked my radio on, and it was on K-Love. And the first thing I heard was, today's verse of the day is Jeremiah 29:13. If you seek me with your whole heart, you will find me. And right when he says that, my roommate, who's a native guy, he says, what's going on in here? It feels real weird in this room. And he was sleeping, and he's like, I feel something weird going on. And so as soon as he said that, click, click, the key opens into my cell door. Click, click, and the officer opens the door and says, Ramirez, you want to go to Bible study? And it was just like, I was like, and so I got up.
Amazing.
And went to Bible study.
That's amazing.
And things were a lot different after that. And so I got up, went to Bible study, and this time it was different, man. I went to Bible study, I listened, I was coming back to my cell, I was reading. I mean, God put a new fire in me. Like I just wanted to read, I wanted to know God, I wanted to grow, I wanted to pray. I mean, these are things I was just hungry for. I wanted to know more, just reading all the time. And I just couldn't get enough of God. But we were sitting there one time, me and my Sally, and he was like a jailhouse lawyer, and he's like, all right, I'm going to write this motion up, man, and we can get your charges dismissed, We found a loophole. I got you, man. So he writes up this big motion, and I remember I pray over it. I say, God, please, and I say this prayer, and I slide the letter under my door. I said, all right, man, we're going to get these charges beat. And I said, let's see what God has to say about it. And so I opened my Bible, and it was Jeremiah 30:11. Right after that, it was a verse after, or a chapter after, and God said, I will punish you justly. I cannot let you go unpunished. And I was like, darn. It's not what I wanted to hear, I'm like, man. So I was like, all right, I guess we're going to prison. So I accepted that. So whatever you want me to do, God, I'll do it. And so I ended up going to prison. This time different. was different. It felt different. My life was different. I wasn't the same person that I was. And so you get to prison. On the way to prison, I had a bunch of charges, like I said, in Bozeman. I had a bunch of charges I had to stop with and deal with there. And this is something, when we kind of rehearsed this, I didn't get to talk with you about it because I forgot about it, but it's a huge part. But I stopped in Bozeman. I was only supposed to be there for a week. I was supposed to get sentenced here and get sentenced in Bozeman a week later, and then off to prison. Well, I ended up going to Bozeman. I got sentenced in Bozeman a week later, but they forgot about me there. I got lost there. So I was there for 6 or 7 months. But my first week there, this guy came in and we started doing Bible studies. His name was Kelly. The coolest guy, man. And he just taught me so much. He'd come every week. He'd pull me out. We'd read the Bible. He'd teach me about the Bible. He became a super close friend of mine. When I ended up getting to prison, he sent me a Bible. He sent me books. He became super close. But I feel like I got lost in Bozeman just so I could meet this guy because he was just an awesome guy.
That's cool.
And then from there, fast forward, I go to Bozeman or to prison, Montana State Prison. And when you get to prison, they got a little intake unit. It's called Fish Row. You get there and it's 90 to 120 days and you're locked down for all day. They let you out to take a shower every other day. And so I'm in that unit. Just got there. I was there about a week. And the guards come open my door and they're like, "Hey, Jason, come out." And they pull me up to the front office and they're like, "You need to call home right now." And so I call home and my sister's on the phone and she's like, "Hey, Mom's dying. She's dying pretty much right now. If you want to say anything, we're going to put the phone up to her ear." They put the phone to her ear and you can imagine whatever you're going to say to your dying mom over a phone call. They said she can't talk, but she can hear you. And so I just said, "Mom, I'm sorry for everything. I love you. You were a great mom." And I just kept saying, "I'm sorry." And when my sister got back on the phone, she said, "Well, she can hear you because there's tears coming down her eyes." And so that was the last time I remember. I hung the phone up, and the guard was like, "Is there anything I can do for you?" I was crying. I had tears in my eyes. He said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I said, "Can I have a Bible?" Because you can't really get it. You got to put in a request for a Bible in there. I said, "Can I have a Bible?" And he said, "Yeah." And he gave me this Bible. And so I went back to my cell, and I had 120 more days, and I just sat there, and I just was on fire. I just started reading and reading and reading. And that's where I believe that I really got to know God and know his character and know who he was. And it was a weird, good time for me in my life. I don't know how to explain it. But so after my 120 days on Fish Row, I went into the prison. I've been to prison. This is my second time, but I've been locked up 3 times. I have a lot of friends. I know everybody. I get into the prison, and most people I know are tattooed and gangbangers, and they live that lifestyle, So I get into the prison, and first couple weeks go by, and I don't go to church because it's just different. In prison, a lot of people that go to the church are either PC cases or sex offenders or stuff like that. So people that I know, people that I'm used to, don't really associate with that, right? And so it's like a feud. So I remember after 4 weeks, I said, I'm going to church. I'm sitting down there by the door, and a couple of my homies walk up, and my friends walk up, and they're like, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going to church." He said, "For what?" He said, "We don't go there." And I said, "I'm going for God, man. I'm not going for them." And they're like, "Only sex offenders go there. What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to church." And so I went to church by myself. I go to church, when I walk in there, and I'm, a pretty big guy, tatted up, and all these guys. So it's all these guys on one side and me on one side, and they're just kind of super freaked out on why I'm even in there. And this is in Shelby, and so that goes on. I pray, I listen to the service, I leave. Next week that happens again. I go again, and this goes on for 3 or 4 months. I was just going to church by myself. And then one day I'm getting ready to go down there, and a couple of my friends are down there by the door. And I said, "What's up?" And they're like, "We're going to church with you, but we ain't talking to them." And I was like, "All right." And so 3 of us go to church, and they're all on one side, and all 3 of us are on one side, and it was looked like maybe a war was about ready to break out, And so that happened for a couple weeks. Then a few more people started coming, and before you know it, the tension kind of eased, and it kind of loosened up and they were kind of sitting together. I mean, they weren't best friends or nothing, but they were able to serve God and worship God and praise God together. And I remember after that, I was kind of thinking, like, back when my teacher told me when I was younger, she's like, Jason, a lot of people will follow you. You're a leader. People want to see that. And that even there and then seeing just by me going to church, how it brought other people to church and other people wanted to serve God. And it just kind of reminded me of that. So I ended up doing about 3.5 years there. And same stuff, serving God. But this time it was different. You know, in prison, there's a lot of drugs. If you want to use drugs, there's more drugs probably in prison than there is on the streets. So, and all the other times I've always used or dabbled in it. This time, but it was different. I didn't want to get high. You know, I wanted something different. And so I ended up going to treatment, a 9-month treatment center. And the same thing there. I ended up going to treatment. I ended up becoming a president and all this stuff at this treatment center. But they have a little thing there that they call a proposal. You can propose to do things. And I was there on Christmas, and I went, this guy used to come in and do Bible studies, and I said, hey, I want to do a church service here. And he said, maybe, and he gave me a pastor's name, a local pastor that was in Lewistown. And so I talked to the staff there at that treatment facility, and I asked him, I said, do you think you guys let me call this church and see if I can get the pastor to come do a sermon here on Christmas Eve? And so you got to write up a proposal. I wrote this proposal, and I asked that pastor and his congregation could come into Nexus and do a church service. And it all got approved. And so I went down to the kitchen and I talked to the kitchen lady. I said, hey, you think you can provide cookies and donuts or coffee and cookies, you know, for this little service I'm trying to get put together? And the lady's like, yeah. And then so Christmas Eve, we go in, it's a gym about this size. We go in there and there's like 50 members of the Lewistown community on one side and all the Nexus community on the other side. And we had a church service, and afterwards everyone got a fellowship and have cookies and coffee. And it was just another thing I was just looking at it like, man, how much God can work in other people's lives just when I'm serving God myself. So that was another one of those instances like, man, I just want to keep serving. I just want to keep serving God. And so I got out of there, you know, left there, got back to the pre-release again, and but this time it was different. I wasn't in pre-release to just get through pre-release. You know, things changed.
Good. So what does your life look like now?
Well, I'll go back a little bit. So right when I got to pre-release, right, Michael and Jolene have 2 of our kids. And so we got invited to come to Emmanuel Baptist Church. We came here. And I remember we got here, loved the service, loved the First Impressions team. They brought us in here. I loved Gary. The very next week we came back and Gary remembered our name. That was big for us. But I remember Alicia wanted to be baptized, so I filled out one of those little cards behind in the pews, you know, want to be baptized. And I remember we get a call from Steve Lortz, and he says, yeah, I'll meet with you guys this Sunday. We go over there, and I walk in. We go in his office. I look up, of course, sheriff badges on the wall. I'm like, oh, great. You know, this guy's really going to like me. But I get talking with Steve. I give him a little bit of my story. I tell him a little bit about my testimony, and I say, I tell him, you know, I want more than just church on Sunday. I said, I need something during the week. And Steve seeing me with all my tattoos and who I am, he didn't even bat an eye at it. He's like, well, we have Bible study at my house on Tuesday nights. You should come. And so we went. We started going to that Bible study. Became a super close friend with Steve. I remember like a couple weeks after I started that Bible study with him and Julie were going on vacation. And I remember telling my wife, man, if their house gets burglarized, they're going to think it was me. Guarantee it. So when Steve went on vacation, I was like security. I was like driving around their house, making sure nobody broke in. You know, right. Like, I'm going to rob these guys. No, but me and Steve became really close friends, and another huge part. So we're at this Bible study. Steve's the missions pastor for here at Emmanuel. You know, he heads that whole thing up, and they're all getting ready to go to Nepal. And I said, hey, that'd be cool. I would love to do that. And Steve says, well, why don't you try? I said, yeah, right. With all my families, they're not, trust me, they're having a hard time letting me go to Laurel. And he said, why don't you try? And so I go down to probation and parole, my PO, and I said, hey, what do you think about me leaving the country and going on a mission trip? He's like, I said, well, going to a Bible study at a ex-sheriff's house. And my PO, he goes, let me guess, Steve Lords. I said, yeah. Well, come to find out, God works things pretty great, because Steve and my PO used to work together at the sheriff's department, so they knew each other pretty good, and they were friends. And he says, well, let me see what I can do. I've never really done this before. So they started, writing letters to the governor and to the sentencing judge and to the parole board. And I got all these approvals of everyone that's saying that they approved of me leave. And I remember the day I got my travel permit from probation and parole, my PO came out and he's like, I want you to know that everyone up is like super amazed that this is even happening. It's like unthinkable for you to be going on a mission trip. And next thing you know, I'm on a plane to Nepal to go share the gospel, all the way on the other side of the world. And I remember me and Steve were walking in the airport, and someone took a picture, and they kind of just showed me and him walking, and just going from, me being a criminal, him being law enforcement. At one time we were two opposite sides of the aisle, and now we come together and want to serve Christ and have one mission. And I just remember looking at that and thinking, why me? Asking God, why would you do this for me when I don't deserve any of this? Right. And it's just blown me away. So now I go on mission trips. I've been to Puerto Rico. Recently, my wife, which if you know my wife, trust me, that's way out of her comfort zone. I mean, this up here is out of my comfort zone. That's like way out of her comfort zone, But for her to go on a mission trip, we have some compassion kids. We got to go to Ecuador, spend time with our kids, Miley and Ronnie. And I mean, from what my life used to be, 12 years ago, being the most wanted person in Billings, police officers shooting people to arrest me, to sharing the gospel all the way on the other side of the world, to sponsoring compassion kids. And it's just, God's moved mountains in my life. And I give him all the glory, and I can't explain how it happened or why it happened, but I'm thankful for where I am today.
That's awesome. Yes, that's worth clapping for. So one of the guys that brings people to church that's super recognizable every Sunday is this guy. So tell me about that.
So it's kind of easy for me to, weird thing is, I'm going on mission trips. We become a member of the church, and we start tattooing. I tattooed in prison. My kids start tattooing on my kitchen table, and so I'm like, I'm going to open a tattoo shop. But I'm like, what is the Emmanuel family going to think about that? You know what I'm saying? How is that going to work out? Tattoo artist, Christian. And so I ended up opening this tattoo shop, man. And my Christian family has been nothing but supportive, nothing but amazing. But it's easy for me because I say tattooing is my ministry, right? I get to tattoo with people. I get to sit there and talk with them for 4 hours, 6 hours. Some of them from the same kind of backgrounds that I have. I get to give my testimony to them on a more personal basis. I get to invite them to church, and a lot of times they accept, a lot of times they don't. But that's why I'm able to bring a lot of people to church, is because I have a super good. I mean, you're stuck in my chair for 6 hours. I can tell you anything. You ain't going nowhere. So no, I get to share my testimony. Get to share the gospel. It's really fortunate. I get to be with my kids every day. It's an awesome thing we have. They're all believers,
That's awesome.
And like we say at our shop, tattooing is our ministry.
That's awesome. It's a great ministry. So for all the guys here, we'll wrap it up with one last question. What do you want people to know tonight?
Jesus. No, no. So I was thinking about this. He's been asking me this question. I've been trying to ponder on this, trying to come up with different things I would say. What would I say? And if there was one thing I had to bring, if I could tell people one thing want him to take away one thing. You know, when I was in that jail cell that day, when I poured my heart out to God, and that guard opened that door up, and he said, Ramirez, come out. You want to go to Bible study? That verse right there, I mean, when I walked out of that cell, I believe I walked out actually saved. That was my point when I gave my life to Christ. But that verse, you know, seek me with your whole heart and you will find me. If I could tell anybody anything, if you're just going to church on Sundays and that's kind of it, and you're not really committed much, I would just say you can't really dabble in Christianity. Seek God with your whole heart and you will find him. I would say, what do you have to lose?
Awesome.
He can move mountains if you seek him.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, let's give Jason a hand.